vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Jonathan Roger, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the August 2nd issue of the New York Times business section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The first article is entitled, It's Baby's First Surveillance System. Nanit and other startups want to track your children through the night and maybe for the rest of their lives. By Sapna Maheshwari. The subtitle of this article is The Booming Business of Baby Monitoring. Startups like Nanit provide a level of data that some find delightful and others find creepy. For all but a few nights of my first child's life, her sleep has been recorded and analyzed by the Nanit Smart Baby Monitor System. A sleek white camera, bolted to the wall, points straight down at her body. High-definition footage is beamed to a server where machine learning algorithms log her movements and the precise moments her eyes open and close. The data are distilled into charts and insights that my husband and I review in the Nanit app, a daily sleep efficiency score from 0 to 100, minutes until sleep onset, the number of times we were needed over the course of a night. Initially, we'd purchased the monitor simply for the ability to check on our daughter from anywhere using our phones. But we were quickly awed by everything else it could do, even as I recognized how unnecessary it was to have this much data about our baby, who was, in fact, a pretty decent sleeper. So much information, I texted a friend. It's honestly TMI, but I love it so much. The Nanit straddles the line between creepy and delightful. It is the eye of Sauron, but it also knows when we enter our daughter's room in the morning and joy hits her face, and it sends us intelligently edited montages of these moments. When I became pregnant with a second child in 2025, my husband and I did not even have a conversation about buying another Nanit camera. We had it waiting the day she came home from the hospital. As a tool that crams together the sweetest thing on earth, a newborn, with relentless data collection by a for-profit tech company, the Nanit has always been a little disconcerting. A branding consultancy helped create the product's visual identity, notes in a case study on its website. The central challenge in this project was how to introduce this novel technology to the parenting market while transcending the negative connotations of surveillance, says the website. Millennial and Gen Z parents seem to have been persuaded. Nanit says it has 1 million daily users and an annual revenue of more than $100 million. The most expensive version of its kit costs $474 and roughly $100 a year in subscription fees. And the market for baby tech is getting only more crowded. Owlet, Nanit's biggest rival, offers a $300 pulse oximetry tracker that attaches to a baby's foot through a sock. Huckleberry, a free app for tracking feedings and diaper changes, markets a $120 upgrade membership with, quote, optimized nap predictions, end quote, and access to an artificial intelligence chatbot that, after logging your baby's habits, can deliver personalized guidance and pep talks. Cubo AI's $359 Smart Baby Monitor 3 touts, quote, AI-scheduled lullabies, end quote, and sends alerts when a baby's face is covered. As the products and their promises proliferate, I've gotten a little unnerved by how easy it's become to outsource daily parenting decisions to technology. The downsides of this rush are manifest: sneakily high costs, the erosion of parents' autonomy and self-confidence, giving sensitive data to corporations. But there may be no stopping the growth of baby tech as a category. Parents my age and younger are increasingly willing to embrace tracking and analytics for their children, part of a broader cultural obsession with health data and optimization. Nearly half of Americans own a wearable device, and the companies that make smart rings and smart wristbands have valuations north of $10 billion. Nanit and its rivals want to own 24/7 health tracking for the sub-4-foot set, and their already astonishing levels of baby data collection are just the beginning. Nanit recently raised $50 million from investors to expand its use of AI and use its camera to track speech and language development, motor skills, and more, while extending its presence in children's bedrooms into early adolescence. My older daughter is now 4 and has become aware of the Nanit, which she refers to by name. I decided I wanted to know more about the company whose products stare at my kids all night and which has designs to start tracking them far more. When I visited Nanit's office in downtown Manhattan recently, I was greeted by the sight of a lifelike baby doll lying in a $600 crib under one of the company's cameras. The doll was clad in a onesie and a $20 Nanit breathing band, which was printed with a sequence of squares and diamonds. By analyzing the movement of pixels, the company's software can quantify every rise and fall of a baby's chest and send alerts to parents' phones if it detects danger. Nanit was founded in 2014 by Asaf Glazer, an Israeli who had just completed a PhD in machine learning and computer vision at the Technion Israel Institute of Technology. Dr. Glazer and his wife had welcomed their first child, and he was sleep deprived. With a friend, Tor Ivory, who was expecting his third child, he began to dream up a device that could identify and analyze sleep beyond the rudimentary baby monitors on the market. Nanit was conjured with words like nanny and nano in mind and was meant to evoke, quote, cutting-edge technology for parents, end quote, Dr. Glazer has said. He is now chief executive of Vinst, a food tech startup in Israel. Since 2024, Nanit has been led by Anushka Salinas, 44, the former president of Rent the Runway. She oversees some 150 employees, most of whom are parents, who work under the tagline, "Turn second guessing into I've got this." When we met at Nanit's office, Ms. Salinas was wearing an Oura ring and was also testing a Whoop band, and she spoke earnestly about how Nanit was, quote, effectively the child answer, quote, to such devices. What's happening with adult tracking is beginning to trickle down now in a much more meaningful way to kids, said Ms. Salinas, who has 2 of her own. Kids aren't really starting to wear Apple Watches and things like that until around age 10 for the most part, sometimes a little younger. So we really think of that 0 to 10 for Nanit as kind of the place that we live, she said. Sleep tracking and optimization will remain the base of Nanit's business, Ms. Salinas said, but already the app offers some health features such as automatically detecting and recording audio of coughs that can be shared with pediatricians. The company sees growth potential in giving its app the ability to weigh in on speech and motor development, which Nanet's camera could track ambiently. Hypothetically, Ms. Salinas said, the app could flag a delay and offer parents tips for improvement like reading more bedtime stories. Children might one day grow up to resent this intrusion, with data on their formative years stored indefinitely on a corporation's servers. Nanet says that its data is secure and is never sold or used for marketing. But Ms. Salinas argues that children in the future may want access to their earliest health analytics for a variety of reasons. Maybe a kid wants to be a professional athlete later on, and they want to be able to look back and understand how their sleep developed and what that means for their potential, she said. She also suggested that when our own Nanet-tracked children have children, they'll value the ability to go back and look at their own bedtimes. Nanet does not store video footage forever, but their comment made me wonder if that function was inevitable. I shuddered to imagine a permanent record of every time I've testily denied a fourth book over vocal protest. This article is accompanied by several photographs. The first is a large photo of a baby in a crib with 5 cameras pointed at the baby and a monitor attached to the baby's crib, and the baby's sleeping. The next one has a camera, a couple cameras, and a monitor, and it's entitled, "Above, Nanet's monitoring products include a dedicated display, cameras, and a wrap that can be used to track every rise and fall of a baby's chest." Nanet's sound and light machine, top left, also features audio monitoring, and the sound and light machine is a rectangular light with a digital clock at the bottom. And then the bottom photo is a woman facing the camera wearing a black dress with dark hair and smiling, and the caption reads, "Since 2024, Nanet has been led by Anushka Salinas, the former president of Rent the Runway. Nanet has about 150 employees, most of them parents." Nanet's people are upfront about not being entirely sure about all the potential uses of their devices. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that we know the answer to what all this data is going to unlock in the future, Ms. Salinas said. She pointed to recent breakthroughs from adult wearables, like detecting atrial fibrillation and the early signs of Parkinson's disease, as proof that the possibilities could be significant. Company executives seem to have absolute conviction in the benefits of their technology. Mr. Ivory, the chief technology officer, shared more ideas. What if a 4-year-old was diagnosed with a medical condition and unique patterns from the Nanet could help explain it? Maybe you have a super introverted kid and you want to understand if some of the motion patterns when they were babies kind of predicted that, he said. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. For the Nanet pilled, it's almost silly to object to the idea of precisely tracking a baby. Victoria Vainberg, the company's marketing chief, pointed out how thoroughly surveillance-like behavior had infiltrated every part of our lives. We care about where our food delivery is, and we want to be able to track it to the exact block until it arrives, she told me. Yet there's a hesitation about knowing exactly how long your baby slept. Baby monitors are a relatively small industry, with sales of just $316 million last year, according to Circana, a market research firm. Turning passive monitors into active health trackers is a way of accessing a far larger pot of money. Various estimates put the size of the wearable market as approaching $100 billion as more consumers use them to track their activity and get algorithmic advice, applying the promise of more data equals better life to children seem like an obvious next step. To hear the companies tell it, the benefits of embracing baby tech are life-changing. Nanit has claimed that its users get 36 extra nights of sleep a year because parents feel more confident shifting babies to their own rooms earlier, and that its monitoring can prevent a baby's skull from getting flat. The company has paid for studies on new parents' sex habits and suggested that buying a Nanit can lead to more intercourse. Owlet and Huckleberry say that more than 90% of their customers enjoy better sleep. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times business section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Kurt Workman, the chief executive of Owlet, which he co-founded in 2012 in Utah, told me that he had noticed parents were asking way fewer questions on how the data can be useful and what it could mean and is safe. The company, which is public, had revenue of $106 million last year and says that more than 2.5 million people have used its products. We have parents who are like, I know I can put my baby to sleep when their heart rate goes below this level, and they'll stay asleep, Mr. Workman said. We're already starting to hack that. In 2021, the Food and Drug Administration sent Mr. Workman a warning letter after finding that Owlet had violated a federal law with marketing that veered into the realm of medical devices. Ads for Owlet's Smart Sock product had promised the device would alert parents about dangerous changes in their children's pulse rates and blood oxygen levels. Now, Owlet sells an FDA-approved Dream Sock, touting, quote, medical-grade monitoring, end quote, that, quote, gives you real-time visibility into your baby's wellness so you know, not guess, end quote. Some pediatricians have criticized Owlet for marketing that makes use of fear. Its website includes testimonials from families who say their babies could have faced, quote, heart failure, end quote, had they not been wearing its device, and for causing unnecessary anxiety. When the Dream Sock malfunctions, parents think their baby has stopped breathing. Mr. Workman argues that the stories about Owlet catching life-threatening conditions are incredible proof points. That's a real-world, tangible impact to having access to health technology, he said. It's not to scare people, but to show that this is real, he said. A different read of the baby tech industry is that it's all nonsense. Infants survived just fine before cameras with infrared night vision, humidity sensors, and 256-bit encryption. My mother, who raised 3 of us, has made no secret that she thinks my generation is crazy. Recently, she got together with some of the Indian aunties whose children I grew up with. They bonded, laughing over the protocols they were subject to when asked to handle their grandchildren's bedtimes. The Nanits and Owlets, the sound machines and temperature controls, the precise sequencing that would make a nuclear reactor shutdown seem casual. The aunties were entertained and baffled by how different these routines were from their own experiences of early motherhood, which they recalled as more relaxed. When I put the Nanit app on my mom's phone for an evening of babysitting, she was bewildered by the phone notifications and mystified by why I would even want the analytics. And she plainly doesn't like it when I use the app to check, a little compulsively, if my sleeping kids are in fact sleeping. In her view, it's all anxiety-inducing. She was weirded out by the idea that my kids' data would live on a server and that they would perhaps be able to retrieve it someday. Too much, she said. For all of Nanit's claims and ambitions, parents often take to social media to complain that its most basic data can be wrong. The camera will flag visits or cries that didn't actually happen. Rebecca Diamond, a pediatrician and assistant professor at Columbia University, worries that parents who rely on these devices are numbing their natural instincts and allowing technology to interfere with one of the most universal and meaningful of human experiences. Quote, I'm kind of cautious and wary of the big picture of kid tracking and health monitoring when it comes to hyper-detailed, hyper-obsessive way it seems to be unrolling, she told me. Parents are losing a little bit of the muscle of their own confidence and decision-making, she said. In other words, baby tracking devices can be infantilizing. Quote, what would you do if you didn't have this app that said your baby needs a nap, end quote, Dr. Diamond said. You'd look at your baby and see they look tired. Baby monitors have their roots in fear. In 1932, American parents were horrified to learn that Charles A. Lindbergh's toddler son had been taken from his second-floor nursery and eventually killed, while 5 adults were in the home. A few years later, Zenith Radio Corporation introduced the first commercial baby monitor. The Radio Nurse was designed to be on guard for babies and the sick and elderly. An instruction manual read, if the baby cries, if the invalid wants a glass of water, if there is a fire, if an intruder enters, you know it instantly. Nanit, Owlet, and their competitors still operate in this space. The comedian John Mulaney recently riffed on his toddler son's sleep setup, saying his bedroom looked like a CIA black site with a blackout tent over his crib. I don't know why we have a 24-hour CCTV footage of my son's crib. He's not going anywhere. He sleeps in a bag, he said. When we have 3 sound machines going at full blast, and because we read it on Instagram, we keep his nursery at 68 degrees. Any warmer and your infant will die automatically, he said. One person who remains oblivious to all this parental anxiety is my older daughter. The Nanit is just a feature in her room. She understands that she can speak to my husband and me through the device, whose 4 red lights blink to power its night vision, and that we can see her at night through our phones. I imagine that she would develop sharper feelings about the camera if it started to play an extended role in her life for years to come. Nanit believes that one solution for that, as it looks to extend its presence in children's bedrooms beyond toddlerhood, is new covers known as camis that can make the monitor look like a bunny, a bear, or an elephant. Ms. Salinas says that making the camera look like a little friend or toy could generate a lot more love for it. But, she added, each family is going to have to decide on their own if their child is okay with having the camera in the room as they get to the age that they're making their own decisions. In her view, This is the start of a new future, a library of health data from cradle to grave. Quote, the adoption curve accelerated significantly over the last few years, end quote, Ms. Salinas said. Quote, and I expect that to continue, such that it'll be almost every parent that will have some product like Nanit that will help them have much richer insights on their child and who they're becoming, end quote. Even before I first met Ms. Salinas, I had been wondering when to remove the Nanit from its perch above my older daughter's bed. She may simply outgrow it before my husband and I come to a formal opinion on privacy versus convenience. These days, she no longer naps, and in the mornings, she is as likely to greet us in our own bed than the other way around. There's still joy on her face, and I make sure to see it there rather than on a screen. The next article is in the real estate section, and it's entitled At Risk of Losing His Seafaring Paradise to New Ownership by Rhonda Kazin, photographs by Jonathan Stokes. And the photographs include a man leaning on a structure inside of a boat, and he has his sunglasses propped on his head, and the caption is Captain Gavin Bladen aboard the Hemisphere. And the next photo is of the back of a large catamaran with a smaller launch approaching it, and the caption continues that Captain Bladen oversaw construction of the Hemisphere and has been helming it since it first set sail in 2011. He has also been in charge of design, like in the main living area below right photo, and bedroom, second row far right. He has decorated those spaces with objects picked up during his travels, second row center, including a wooden octopus. And the additional photos show the interior of this boat, which boasts a wraparound couch with a beautiful wooden table, and the octopus and a ornamental sea turtle. There's an office and a bedroom also photographed. And the article reads, as Captain Gavin Bladen looks for new buyers for the vessel he has overseen for years, he realizes he could be cast aside. The Mediterranean Sea. For 38.5 million euros, the prospective boat buyer would expect perfection, and Captain Gavin Bladen was pretty sure that what he had to offer, a 5-cabin luxury catamaran anchored in a Mediterranean cove on the French Riviera on a nearly cloudless day in June, was as close as it gets. Mr. Bladen, dressed for work in a white polo, charcoal shorts, and bare feet, was at the ready when his visitor, a yacht broker from Monaco, stepped onto the teak deck. He clasped his guest's hand, offered him an espresso, and eased into a soft cell of the boat, Hemisphere, as it rocked ever so gently in the bright blue water. Its owner, a wealthy 83-year-old American named Anthony Marlin, was selling it for the equivalent of almost $44 million, leaving Mr. Bladen with the unwelcome task of finding a buyer for what had been his home for 15 years, and a dreamy home at that. The tour was an orchestrated exercise in showcasing Hemisphere's quiet but undeniable luxury. Was there anything like the ridged texture of this ostrich leather wall covering Notice the undulating finish of the African walnut main cabin flooring. See how the outdoor dining area has overhead air conditioning so that even on the hottest days one needn't unwillingly perspire? The yacht broker, Simon Ting, touring Hemisphere on behalf of, quote, a specific client that loves doing adventurous stuff, end quote, seemed underwhelmed. Newer boats have cabins with floor-to-ceiling windows that dip below the waterline, a feature so immersive that the dolphins wink at you, Mr. Ting said. Mr. Bladen, 54, couldn't compete with winking dolphins. And he was aware there were super yachts that dwarfed Hemisphere and had helicopters, jet skis, and infinity pools, along with aquarium-style windows. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times business section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. But a sailing catamaran is not like most super yachts, which are power boats. Hemisphere is instead a two-hulled sailboat, though it has a powerful motor too. So with a 55-foot beam, it is roughly double the width of a typical powerboat of similar length, delivering a roomy, stable ride. It has circumnavigated the globe 3 times, reaching some of the most secluded diving destinations on Earth. The 145-foot vessel was the largest sailing catamaran in the world until the 2024 launch of the Artex Explorer at 152 feet. By gross tonnage, we're still the largest, Mr. Bladen noted. Mr. Bladen oversaw the design and construction of Hemisphere and has lived aboard it since it first set sail in 2011 from Falmouth, England. Just about his whole life is on the boat. For the past decade, his girlfriend, Fatima Yaban, 44, has sailed with him, working on board as the head of housekeeping. The main cabin centerpiece is a 2-foot by 3-foot wooden octopus that Mr. Bladen bought in Palau, where he met Ms. Yaban. The 30-year-old bonsai trees on the rear deck, he bought them too, and makes sure they're properly pruned, protected, and nurtured. Even Dr. Marlin, the boat's owner, sees Hemisphere as Mr. Bladen's home. There's no question, he said in a telephone interview. Dr. Marlin and his family use the boat about 1 month a year, always with Mr. Bladen at the helm. Mr. Bladen cares for the vessel, overseeing a crew of 9, operating charters for a fee of 255,000 euros a week, which is 291,000 US dollars per week, along with 30% for incidentals and tips for the staff. Now, Mr. Bladen was facing the possibility that the seafaring paradise he created might soon be lost. A new owner might not want to charter the boat or sail the globe, choosing to stick to the predictable seasonal route from the Caribbean to the Mediterranean. That trip is known among captains as the Milk Run, and while it might sound interesting if you spend most of your time on land, Mr. Bladen finds it numbing. The next owner might run a more corporate operation than Dr. Marlin does, dictating whom Mr. Bladen hires and how the charters are managed. Or the owner might already have a captain on staff, leaving Mr. Bladen without a job. It's 100% the end of a chapter, Mr. Bladen said after Mr. Ting departed. I could find the person who fires me. Hemisphere's unlikely origins. Mr. Bladen met Dr. Marlin in 2001 when he was captain of Double Feature, a 57-foot catamaran in the British Virgin Islands. Dr. Marlin, a cardiologist who started a health insurance company that he later sold for $2.6 billion to United Health Group, had chartered a boat for a week, diving with his wife, Renee, and other family members. He immediately took to Mr. Bladen, impressed by the way he coolly shepherded Ms. Marlin through the process of getting her diving certification, staying by her side as her confidence and skill grew. The couple returned later for vacation. This time, Mr. Bladen said, "Dr. Marlin gave me the nod and wink to look for a big cat to buy," Mr. Bladen said. "But there was nothing on the market that seemed worth the money. That should have been the end of it," Mr. Bladen said. But it wasn't, because Mr. Bladen then suggested that Dr. Marlin build a boat of his own. Soon Mr. Bladen found himself interviewing the world's top yacht designers. At one point, they found a 130-foot catamaran under construction, but it burned down in the shipyard before Dr. Marlin could make an offer. The two pressed on, and with each interview, the definition of a, quote, big cat, end quote, grew. You get a drawing of an 85-footer, and it's like, "That is lovely. Look at that one," Mr. Bladen recalled. And then a 90-footer, 95-footer, 100-footer. Mr. Bladen hired a yacht designer, an interior designer, and a builder, and managed the sprawling project across 2 continents. It was nearly derailed when the original shipyard went bankrupt, turning what was supposed to be a 4-year project into a 7-year slog and doubling the cost from $27 million to $57 million. Mr. Bladen grew up in Yorkshire, England, the son of a regional bank manager. Never much of a student, he left for Australia at 20 to travel. "My dad didn't speak to me for a week," he said. "He took diving lessons in the Great Barrier Reef, became an instructor, and eventually captained dive boats like the Double Feature. So he was surprised in 2004 to be sitting in a yacht designer's Paris office, poring over plans for what had ballooned into a 145-foot vessel. He obsessed over details, constantly looking for ways to elevate the design. I'd look at their drawings and go, he could do that differently. He could do this differently." He moved to Connecticut to oversee the build, and in the wake of the bankruptcy, eventually loaded the 180-ton vessel onto a ship and, as a passenger, crossed the Atlantic Ocean with it. 2 years later, in 2011, the Marlin family gathered for the maiden voyage on a windy afternoon, hovering around Mr. Bladen as he steered Hemisphere out to sea and off toward the Mediterranean. Residents from the town gathered for the event, celebrated with a fireworks display. So began an epic voyage that would take Mr. Bladen to 75 countries, diving in Micronesia, India, French Polynesia, Egypt, and the Galapagos Islands, sometimes with the Marlins, sometimes with charters, sometimes with only the crew. He dove alongside a humpback whale and her calf. She was not pleased. He swam with the orcas, a cattle egret, blown out to sea from a storm in Puerto Rico, landed aboard in 2018, exhausted and weak. Mr. Bladen named the orphan Rodeo and fed him bits of fish. Rodeo hung around for 2 weeks until they reached Tahiti, then took flight. In 2016, Mr. Bladen met Ms. Yabin at a bar where she worked in Palau, earning about $1.50 an hour, and persuaded her to join him aboard the boat as a seafaring stewardess. Her wages soared, and she did not have to pay for rent, food, or household items, allowing her to send 2/3 of her income home to the Philippines, and eventually put her son through medical school. It changed her whole family's life, Mr. Bladen said. Luxury comes with costs. After the yacht broker finished his visit to Hemisphere, Mr. Bladen had 36 hours before he would depart the south of France for Dubrovnik, Croatia, a 5-day passage to pick up a family that had chartered the boat for 2 weeks. But before the crew began working around the clock, 4 hours on, 8 hours off, with no alcohol allowed, one crew member called this sea tox. They wanted a night out in nearby Nice to celebrate the 22nd birthday of one of the stewardesses. While the crew got ready to party, Mr. Bladen was thinking about the case of €500 a bottle wine he needed to pick up from the wine dealer for Hemisphere's next charter. I orchestrate everything, he said, so tonight when they're drinking, going, "Hey, happy birthday, don't need to do anything, I'm still working, my mind's still ticking, it never stops." At sunset, Mr. Bladen and the crew rowed a tender, beers in hand, to the Whale's Tail, a pickup point at the nearby dock. They piled into Ubers, shared a dinner of wine, beef cheeks, carpaccio, and sea bream. As Mr. Bladen signed the check, most of the crew scrambled to make plans to stay ashore for the night. The next morning, Mr. Bladen and Ms. Yabin visited Eze, a medieval village perched in the cliffs above the Mediterranean, for lunch. From the mountains high above the sea, while tourists admired the view, Mr. Bladen spotted Hemisphere anchored among the other super yachts. "I can't see if they put the tender away," he groused to Ms. Yabin. Luxury lies in the details, and Mr. Bladen is a details guy. The boat's cabins are infused with a citrus and basil aroma. Towels draped on a warming wrap are never cold. Lunch, perhaps a spread of grilled branzino, Sardinian frigola, and heritage tomatoes, awaits you as you re-embark after a morning spent diving. Fresh laundry is returned to your cabin, pressed and folded after an evening spent spotting the whales breach. In February, in St. Thomas, after returning from shore, Mr. Bladen spotted a tiny 1/4-inch ding in the teak on the upper floor deck and was furious. "Teak costs like €300,000, he said. "No one admitted to it when I got back, and I see a ding in the teak. And I think, who did that?" The next day, the mystery was solved. A bullet was found in the boom. Mr. Bladen assumed someone had fired a gun from the dock, and the bullet landed on deck, a plausible explanation that exonerated his crew. As the live-aboard captain, Mr. Bladen enjoys many of the luxuries he provides to his guests. He gets warm towels and doesn't launder his own clothes. He doesn't cook his meals either. The chef does that. Providing all this luxury is not cheap. Hemisphere has 2 engines, 3 generators, 4 air conditioning compressors. When anchored, it churns through 114 gallons of fuel a day. During a passage, it can burn as much as 635. It makes its own fresh water, which is stored in tanks that hold 2,230 gallons, using reverse osmosis. With docking fees, passage fees, and maintenance costs, it all adds up to $3 million a year in maintenance. Charters defray half the cost. Dr. Marlin is done carrying the financial load. Quote, "How old am I? 83? He said. I do not want to leave my wife with that boat, end quote. Mr. Bladen tries not to think too far ahead. He has been working with the yacht designer to potentially build a new catamaran which at 230 feet would overshadow Hemisphere. Perhaps an adventurous patron will buy it and hire him as captain. But whatever happens, he will miss the Marlins. I won't have anybody as good as the family I've worked with, he said. Stuck on the milk run. When it was time to leave the French Riviera, a deckhand pulled up the anchor 330 feet of metal chain grinding up from the sea floor and coiling under the deck. Mr. Bladen, at the helm, steered into open water. France is behind me now, he said. By early evening, the last vestiges of land had faded from view. With the air still, there was no reason to raise the sails. It was just as well. They were old, stained with mold, and ready to be replaced. Dr. Marlin had no plans to spend 500,000 euros on new sails. That would fall to the next owner. To Mr. Bladen, the moldy sails were another gnawing reminder that while nothing had changed, everything already had. He would make no more trips to the South Pacific. The boat needed to stay close to the Mediterranean for showings. Even charters would be scarce because charter agents are reluctant to book a boat that's on the market. So Mr. Bladen and his crew were already relegated to the tedious milk run, a path that could leave a crew restless and open to jobs on more active boats. Daylight brought with it a view of land. Southern Corsica was in Mr. Bladen's sights. He inhaled the earthy, salty morning air. Terra firma, quote, smells like problems. Paperwork rules, he said. That's what's cool about being here. There's no rules. There's no paperwork, no problems. His destination was far beyond the horizon, and he was safe at home. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times business section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next article is entitled Work Friend by Max Reed, and the subject is 13-year-olds have issues on the job too. And the question submitted to the writer is as follows. I'm 13 years old and I volunteer as an assistant to the lifeguards during my local pool's swim lessons. There are 8 volunteers, 3 girls and 5 boys, and our job consists mostly of standing in the water, making sure that little Timmy doesn't sink like a rock while practicing the front crawl. The lifeguards are also watching, of course, and the volunteers don't need to be in the water unless the students outnumber the lifeguards. The trouble is this: we are generally responsible for noticing whether we need to be in the water. Usually, when our help is necessary, the other girls and I end up helping while the boys keep playing basketball or something, oblivious. When we try to get them to help, they avoid it. What annoys me even more, though, is that they, the boys, have figured out that I am a complete nerd and seem to find this entertaining. They insist on telling them a fun fact of the lesson during any session when they are not too busy playing baseball. I enjoy telling them things even though I know they don't want to know and they just want to laugh at me. But I struggle to find facts that I'm really comfortable sharing in front of the young children because most of the facts I find fun are related in some way to murder or corpses. I have to know these things. I want to be a forensic pathologist or private detective when I grow up. Also, the boys have never stopped shouting, "By Jove," at anything remotely startling, like a home run. After I muttered it when I was kicked by a 5-year-old doing a handstand because they find it entertaining to mock my inexplicable old-fashionedness. Again, I don't mind personally. It's a weird thing to say, but it disrupts class, and they don't help with class. I think that either the boys should start to pull their own weight, or they should stop relying on me to entertain them when they don't. But I suspect that anyone I talk to will just say something along the lines of, "That's just how teenage boys are," and do nothing. Or I could get revenge. This would be my preferred outcome, but I haven't a clue how to do that. I have some ideas, but they are rather problematic in their implementation, and they're not particularly sporting anyway. I'm willing to be a jerk, but I have to be fair about it. What should I do? Signed, Anonymous. And here's the response. The unfortunate fact is that you are dealing at age 13 with an eternal workplace problem, one that affects local pools and Fortune 500 companies alike, and presumably forensic pathology labs and private detective firms as well. Shirkers who palm off work and mask their lack of contribution with over-friendliness. You say your colleagues' teasing doesn't bother you much on a personal level, and I can respect that. As behavior from 13-year-olds goes, this kind of needling attention isn't the worst. If your main problem was that you had to deal with boys being annoying at work, I think I would advise you to ignore them until they moved on or turned 30, whichever came first. But it seems to me that the mostly innocuous repartee is also being used to establish an atmosphere of clubby fun that excuses the way they've foisted their work on you and the other girls. So long as you play along, even begrudgingly, it's easy for them to fool the lifeguards and any onlooking adults, and maybe even themselves, into thinking everything about the current arrangement is fine. I think you need to more actively cut it off. When the boys ask for a fun fact of the lesson, decline. When they say "by Jove," don't crack a smile. Don't even roll your eyes. You don't need to be rude or mean. In fact, it's best if you can maintain a neutral disengagement. If they ask why you've clammed up, you can say, "I don't feel like joking around when I'm doing all the work and you're goofing off." You don't need the perfect witty comeback or an elaborate revenge scheme. That stuff is for movies. In real life, few things are scarier than a person who doesn't acknowledge your jokes. If we're all lucky, at least some of those boys will learn blessedly early that you can't spend your time goofing off and assume someone else, most likely someone else female, will pick up the slack. The long-term satisfaction of teaching a valuable lesson may not precisely match with the satisfaction of the revenge plot in your head, but it's not such a bad consolation. You will still need to talk to a supervisor or other authority figure about the specific problem of the boys avoiding work. I understand your worry that you'll be met with, quote, "That's just how teenage boys are," end quote. But correctly staffing the lessons is a safety issue, and if the boys aren't pulling their weight, the pool will want to know. You can help by refusing to give the boys social cover for their malingering. You might also consider refusing to give them actual cover, too. If you can't get a lifeguard to care simply by asking, and if you can't persuade the boys to get in themselves, you and your fellow assistants can force the issue by declining to get into the pool until the boys have done their fair share of work. It's never too early to begin practicing work stoppages. And on the back page of the section is a section entitled "In Memoriam," And the name of the person being memorialized is Bruno Balfo. And there's a large photo of a smiling gentleman who is mostly bald and wearing a light-colored dress shirt with a yellow spotted tie and wire-rimmed glasses, and he's smiling. And the text reads as follows. It is with deep sadness that the Balfo family announces the passing of Bruno Balfo, beloved husband, father, grandfather, and founder of Duferco Group, who died peacefully in his beloved wife's arms in Lugano, Switzerland on July 17th, 2026, at the age of 84. Born in Lavagna, Italy, Bruno Balfo was one of the outstanding figures in the global steel industry. He began his career at Siderexport, the international trading arm of Italcider, where he rapidly distinguished himself as one of the company's most promising young executives. During those years, he also worked in New York, gaining valuable experience in international commodity markets and developing the global outlook that would shape the rest of his career. In 1979, together with a small group of fellow Ligurians, he founded Duferco in New York City and Sao Paulo, Brazil, after leaving Siderexport. What began as an entrepreneurial venture grew into one of the world's leading industrial and trading groups, with operations spanning the Americas, Europe, Africa, and Asia. Under his leadership, Duferco successfully expanded beyond steel into energy, shipping, logistics, and other strategic sectors, while remaining true to its industrial roots. His greatest legacy is not only the global company he created, but also the values he leaves behind. Optimism, respect for others, confidence in younger generations, and the conviction that entrepreneurship is one of the highest expressions of human creativity. He is survived by his wife, 2 children, and 2 grandchildren, and by generations of colleagues, partners, and friends across the world who had the privilege of working alongside him. His vision will continue to inspire. His example will never be forgotten. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the August 2nd issue of the New York Times Business Section. We read from the New York Times Business Section every Thursday at 11 a.m. Your reader has been Jonathan Roger. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the USA Today. Following that at 2 o'clock is episode number 4 of Wayward Girls by Susan Wiggs. Stay with us for these readings and more.
following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have